In many countries around the world, people think of coffee and its primary ingredient, caffeine, as the main source of fuel for their workday. It's gotten a bad rap over the years, as some now discredited studies linked coffee drinking with hazardous conditions. As recently as 1991, the World Health Organization listed coffee as a possible carcinogen. We know now this just isn't true. And as modern research shows, when consumed in moderation, coffee and caffeine actually come with some health benefits. Studies have found that drinking coffee may lower your risk of type 2 diabetes, Alzheimer's and Parkinson's disease, liver cancer, and even early death. Benefits aside, coffee alone is not an efficient source of fuel for an entire workday. You wouldn't run a marathon on a few cups of coffee, would you? Well, the workday is a lot like a marathon, and you need more than coffee to get through it. You actually need food. A growing body of science shows that what we eat impacts our brain health and in turn our productivity and overall well-being. In order to finish the race each day, you need to eat with regularity and intention. Just about everything we eat turns into glucose, which is direct energy for our brains. But not all foods turn to glucose at the same rate. Some foods release glucose quickly, giving us a spike in energy, while others take longer to work their energy magic. Let's say you have coffee and toast in the morning before work. This continental breakfast is high in simple carbohydrates and converts to glucose very quickly, giving you a steep spike in blood sugar. But what goes up must come down. If you want to feel and perform your best throughout the workday, you're gonna need to follow that breakfast with a nutritious lunch to stabilize your energy. Here's cognitive nutritionist Tess Bredesen.
What is a nutritious lunch? We typically think of nutrition as calories, right? Calories in equals calories out, but it's so much more complex than that.
Not only will skipping lunch cause your energy to crash and burn, but you'll mess with two other crucial components that impact your body and mind. First, there's your circadian rhythm.
So the circadian rhythm is our body's internal clock. And our internal clock loves routine. It loves when we wake up around the same time each day. It loves when we go to bed around the same time each night. And it loves, in fact, when we eat around the same time each day. When we are eating in a way that aligns with our circadian rhythm, our internal clock, we become more efficient at breaking down foods, and we also become more able to use those nutrients for productivity, for focusing.
Taking lunch is also an opportunity to disconnect from your screens, which is key to preventing burnout and prolonging your energy at work. But if you skip lunch or scarf down your food while at your desk, you don't get those benefits of unplugging. 9 in 10 of us are zombie eaters, meaning we eat while looking at a screen. Zombie eating doesn't just take the break out of lunch break, it also impacts how we benefit from the food.
It's really interesting because being mindful of our food starts the digestion process. So when we are looking at and smelling our foods, it actually causes a buildup of amylase, the enzyme in our saliva that helps break down the carbohydrates that we eat. So quite literally, mindfulness is part of digestion.
In addition to a meaningful, disconnected lunch, we need snacks to help us power through the workday. Here's registered dietitian nutritionist Mei Zhu.
Snacks are important for us to boost productivity because we need energy to fuel our brain, and refueling our bodies throughout the day is essential because energy comes from food, and specifically eating balanced meals and snacks throughout the day that contain protein and fiber and healthy fats can help control our blood sugars, which help keep our energy stable and consistent.
Researchers are just scratching the surface of understanding the link between gut health and brain health. Some of what we do know includes the fact that about 90% of serotonin, the so-called feel-good hormone, is produced in our gut. We also know that when our gut microbiome is stressed, it sends a stress signal to our brain and vice versa.
So cortisol is the body's main stress hormone. When you are under stress, cortisol levels spike in the body, and that activates what's called the sympathetic nervous system, or your fight or flight mode. When we are in fight or flight mode, that means we are not in rest and digest mode, and therefore, when we are under stress, we do not digest foods as well.
When you experience stress that's linked to a cognitive task, like getting an urgent email from your boss, it leads to a spike in blood sugar, much like the one you have after a breakfast of coffee and toast. Once that spike occurs, your brain searches for an easy fix to keep the high. It wants glucose, and it wants it now. In this fiending state, our brain doesn't want nuts or avocado, which would rebalance and prolong our energy. It wants chips or cookies, items that will spike your blood sugar again. This cycle is not good for productivity, but unfortunately, it's a common one. Bottom line is that if you're serious about unlocking productivity and well-being at work, making well-informed choices about food is vital.
Coffee is great, but it is not a replacement for a balanced meal or a snack. So to ensure that we have a sustained amount of energy, think of coffee as more of a short-term boost of energy, whereas a balanced meal with combination of protein, fiber, and healthy fats can give us that prolonged energy throughout the workday. I mean, I love coffee too, but it just doesn't feel great after the caffeine starts wearing off. So you have to remember to eat as well.
So it's 3 o'clock, right around the time I usually refill this cup of coffee. Not today. I think it's time for a new approach. See ya. Want more? Like and subscribe. I may need some help.